and welcome to Community Friends. My name's Karen Neeley, and I'm a Norwich resident, and I'm guest hosting tonight. Deb Kivitz brought me on to bring some information to the community that's very timely. Right now, we're in the process of going to be deciding as citizens in Norwich on the referendum in November on the ballot as to whether or not to vote in favor of a bond to have a new police station. And I wanted to get as much information out to the public as possible, so I've brought on two guests to help us do that. We've got Chief Louis Fusaro. Hi, Lou.
How are you?
Good, how are you? And we've got City Manager Alan Bergren.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you both for coming on. We have a lot of information to cover in a really short period of time, so we're going to get right started. I had the chance last Friday to take a tour of our current police facility. And one thing I'm going to say, and I may say it repeatedly, is that I encourage every citizen of Norwich who has not seen the police station to schedule a visit to go to the police station and take a tour, because it was very eye-opening for me. I think the first thing that I discovered in my tour was that, and the chief can speak to this, is we're bursting at the seams.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the current facility.
Well,
And
I
where
think
we're
one
at.
of the things that I've been saying that kind of sums it up in a very succinct way is that every activity and every program that we run into difficulties with the building because of the size. It's just woefully inadequate in size. We did a professional needs assessment, and that assessment said we should have 57,000 square feet. We only have 21,000 square feet.
Right.
And you saw, on Friday,
I did.
just how congested it is, and it makes us very inefficient when we're trying to improve efficiency to reduce our costs. So that's one of the prime reasons why we need to do something, and we've had this need for some time now.
Right, well, what I saw when I was there was that you've done an amazing job over time of making the best use of the small space. But there are things that go on in terms of the space that just shouldn't be happening. There's people in rooms that shouldn't be in rooms that should be for interviews, so you don't have enough of the space to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and one of the unfortunate things is because we've grown along the way, and rightly so, the city has grown, and so have we, and that needs to happen. The city needs to reinvent itself as it goes along. One of the things that happens, citizens come in to visit us, like you did, and more than likely, our officers are going to be talking to them in the lobby or in the hallway, because we've, by necessity, had to reduce the number of interview rooms, and that's just not a very professional way to do business, and citizens deserve better than that. We expect our officers to be very professional, and they are, but it's not very professional to talk to someone about police business which is always of personal nature, in a hallway or in a lobby.
No,
it's a public lobby. It's not really for interviews, but unfortunately, when the interview room is taken up, they have no other choice.
Right.
So that's a very important issue.
It is, because people want privacy.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what's interesting is, so I've been there, but let me ask you a question. Well, why can't we just expand the current facility right there on the site? I mean,
That question's been asked a number of times, and that's the first thing we looked at. Really, I started this process back in 1998, and we looked just at doing that because there was some talk that we could add a story or more to the existing building. There's no practical way to do that. We would have to leave for 18 to 24 months and set up a police station somewhere else. And that's a great expense and a very difficult process to do because we have numerous 911 circuits, radio circuits, our dispatch, our cells, our locker rooms, all those make it very difficult to just get up and move. We can't just get up and move into some office space.
Right.
There's all those facilities that have to go with us, which makes it extremely expensive. So it really is not a viable option. So first thing we looked at, two different professionals told me that won't work. It won't get us to where we need to be, and it won't get us out into the future, which is something we also need to do. So we're not continuing to do this every 20 or 30 years.
Right. Well, when I was at the station visiting, what I noticed was the first thing I encountered just visiting there, and anybody else who visits might encounter the same thing, is I think I had the last available parking spot in the area because the lot size is so small and the parking is so limited that I got like the last available spot, which should never happen in a facility where the public needs a one-stop to be able to come to get to their police station. I mean, there should be plenty of parking, and there just wasn't.
Absolutely, and that's another issue, obviously, that the public runs into constantly, and we want people to be welcome to come to us, not shunned away because they can't find a parking space. There's no on-street parking because it's Route 32,
Right.
And the lot is bordered by Route 32 and the railroad and the river, and on the north side by Route 82. So there's very limited space to try to do anything, and I just spoke to that. It just doesn't work.
Right.
To try to do
right.
something there.
Well, yeah, I noticed that, and I mean, I noticed that the lot itself has the size limitation for the lot itself, so there's no expansion that can be done of the building out. And even if you could build a building up, like you said, where is that ready-made place that the police department could move for a period of time to rebuild or to build up in the current facility? You'd have to find another police department to move to, in essence.
Exactly, and
Right.
over the years, we've been looking for a permanent location, and it's been difficult to find an appropriate place. Yeah, the city is over 350 years old. It's built out, and we have found a solution, and that's in the project that we're talking about tonight.
Right.
But it's been difficult finding a site. We've looked at numerous sites. We've looked at probably about 24, and many of the sites that people have said, well, why don't you do X, Y, or Z?
Right.
We've already looked at those spots, and for one reason or another, or multiple reasons, we've had to discount them. And that's why we're focused on the site that we're focused on now.
Yep.
Because
and
it
if
works for
anyone-
us.
Yeah, that's right. If anybody wants the information about what those sites were that were looked at the end of the show, there's going to be email addresses that come up where you can get the documents that list those locations that were looked at and what their existing site was like and if it would meet the needs or not. So all that information is available. I want to make that clear. The other thing I wanted to mention about the current facility, which I found was amazing when I was there, and it didn't really cross my mind until we were walking around. I was right toward the very end. You pointed out that all the police cars are parked outside. Now, as anybody knows who has no garage, that when you put your vehicles and all your valuable things outside, that the weather tends to attack them, right?
Absolutely.
And that's probably the reason why fire departments all have fire stations with these very expensive trucks, because you can't leave them outside. They need to be garaged. They need to be ready to go. So in essence, the taxpayers are going to have to pay for the wear and tear, right, on vehicles that are kept outside every year. So
And if they look at some of our cars, they'll see how
Right.
the cars have weathered. The
Right.
markings have actually weathered.
Right.
And we're in the process of replacing them, but we shouldn't have to do as much replacement if we can
Right.
have them in a facility that doesn't get snowed on, doesn't
Right.
get rained on,
Right.
and it protects their assets, the city's assets.
that is protecting their assets.
Yes.
And I saw that very expensive mobile command
Center.
parked outside in the hot sun. I
Right.
mean, that needs
It's
to
out
be
there in the
that needs to be
cold and-
protected. That's
Yeah.
probably several $100,000 to pay for that, right?
And it was between $300,000 and $400,000, and we worked very hard at getting a federal grant for that vehicle. It didn't cost any local tax dollars, and it is a shame that it's sitting outside, but we have nowhere else to put it.
Right, right.
This would solve that problem.
Yeah, because of the two decks of parking above the public parking area would,
Right, and
that's
there's-
for
and there's
police
some-
cars, that's for
right, there's some storage
personnel, but then there's storage in
for
there.
that- for
Okay,
that
sorry, yeah,
particular vehicle and
I'm trying
a
to
couple other
recall everything.
vehicles.
That's right, so you'll get storage facilities. So you mentioned that, in 1998, you started this process of looking for different properties. But the other question comes up, well, we can't expand on the site, so what about substations? Why can't we use substations?
We also investigated that, and I know from my experience that there's no department our size does that because it's so expensive.
Oh, wow.
And in the annual operating budget. because you have to acquire those properties, you have to heat them, you have to maintain them. We'd have to put lockers in them because we don't, that's part of the problem, we don't have enough lockers. So all those facilities would have to be built into a variety of different locations, and the operating expenses would go up astronomically. It makes no sense to do that. What we want to do is we want to have and we don't want to put officers to man those substations.
Right.
Because now they're not out in the neighborhoods where we want them, and part of
They're
our
in a building.
community policing is getting our officers out in the neighborhoods on foot, on bike, and obviously in cars. And it makes no sense, because that's where we want them. That's where things are happening that we want to intercede with, not in a substation. We don't, and it also causes us another issue, which is supervision. We'd have to have a greater number of supervisors to man all these different substations.
So it increases personnel costs.
Absolutely, and it would, and every year we'd be paying a lot more money.
Right.
So we function much better in a centralized location, in a modern facility that is equipped for today's policing, and so that our officers can do the work that they need to do.
Right, because policing is very different now than it was, say, 10,
Technology
15, 20 years ago.
Technology has turned it almost upside down in some of the things that we do now, and they're good things. But of course, our building was built in the 1970s, and none of that technology existed then.
No.
We didn't move. When we moved in, we had no computers, and the various other things that even we have computerized fingerprinting now that didn't exist then with an AFIS system.
Right.
So there's all kinds of different technologies that would be built into a new building that we don't have right now.
Right. So we talk about police being out in the community. We talk about, now somebody might say, well, if you have a substation in my neighborhood, then they're in my neighborhood. But really, what you do is you want them on foot or on bicycle or in their patrol car. That's in the neighborhood.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what community policing is and how community policing started in Norwich and where we ended up at.
Well, back in the 1990s, we had some state grants that we started our community policing program. And during that time, we found that it worked very well. The neighborhoods, the people, the residents in the neighborhoods loved them. They loved to see the officers on bike or on foot, and even in the car where we do a park and walk kind of situation. And the whole purpose of it is to get together and work with neighborhood groups, work with civic groups, and work with individual residents, and get a close relationship between the officers and the people in the neighborhoods. Because our job is to work on information. We solve crimes and we prevent things from happening when we have information. So whatever facilitates the gathering of information, nothing facilitates it better than a good relationship between the individual officers and individuals in the community and groups and civic groups in the community, because it makes people very comfortable about giving us the information that we need.
Right.
And we need to know it timely.
Right.
Preferably before anything happens, so that we can intercede and make a difference.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't really understand what community policing was all about, and it makes sense that you want the ability to have a good relationship with the citizens in the community, and you want all the tools that will enable you to do that, because if there's good relationships with people in the community, then your policing efforts can be better, correct?
Exactly. And the building is one of those tools.
Right.
People don't always think that, but the building is one of those tools, because we want to bring people into our facility. When the station we're in now was built, it was, keep everybody out except the people you're dealing with. There was no community policing portion of that. What we want to do is we want a building that welcomes people in, that we can have the facility, that we can meet with individuals and groups and work with them in a positive way, and get our officers to work with them in a positive way. So it's what we're looking at doing is a holistic approach, which includes the building, includes our community policing patrols, and getting our officers out in the neighborhoods, but also getting the community into our facility so we can show them what we do and how we do it.
Right. Well, I can tell you that having toured the current police station, There is no way you can do that right now. There's no way you can do that in that existing facility. And if you were to split it into multiple facilities, then you wouldn't be able to have, people wouldn't know where to go or what to get where. So you really do need one facility, and you talk about this, we've talked about this multi-purpose room, that ties into community policing. Right now you send police officers all over the place to do a variety of things, training, qualifications for different things, and it costs the city money, right? Plus, you don't have a meeting space. I saw your meeting space. I saw what you had, and you don't have a meeting space.
Not really, no.
So what
Classroom.
so this multi-purpose room that we've been talking about, how is that going to help?
Well, that's why we call it a multi-purpose room, because it's a room where we can bring the community in
Right.
and meet with various groups.
Right.
But it's also a facility where we can do regional training. We have a number of certified officers trained to be police instructors in our department. We end up sending them to departments in the region that have a bigger facility, because our facility, between the parking and the facility itself, doesn't lend itself for us to do that training. So we send our officers who are instructors away to other communities, and we send our officers who need the certification classes to other communities. And that makes no sense, because we pay them, once they leave the station,
Right.
they're on the clock, and we pay until they get back. So
Right.
it's more expensive, plus there's an offshoot. When they go somewhere else, they have lunch. So they have lunch somewhere else. Wouldn't it be better if they were having lunch right here in downtown Norwich?
Right, exactly. Well, I was also thinking too, you and I were having this conversation, because we talked about a lot of things that day I came in. And one of the things that concerned me was that, if we're sending officers out to go to training, or to go wherever they need to go, or to qualify for their requalification for after they've been on the leave for certificate or whatever, and if there's an emergency in the city that requires more officers be called in, now they've got to come from wherever we've sent them. So in essence, for the short period of time, it's not that we're unsafe, but if we needed those officers, now they've got to drive from wherever they are, whereas if they were being trained there or certified or whatever, it would be a matter of stopping the training in that building and putting the officers where they were
Absolutely.
needed, right?
That's a benefit of having the training done locally as opposed to going somewhere else, because they are available. Obviously, if, everything we do is on priorities.
Right.
Well, training would be a low priority if we had
Right.
a significant emergency going on.
Right.
So we would do that,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, and as a taxpayer, and I mean, the three of us sitting here at this table are all taxpayers. We all live in the city of Norwich. So it's not that it's not that I'm trying single-handedly to get everybody to pay more, neither is anybody else here.
No.
None of us are.
No, thank you.
However, there comes a point at which you have to look at what the problem is, and you have to determine the right thing to do. And as a non-employee of the city, because the two of you are, I can say to people, this, after studying all the information that's available, after having a tour, after listening and asking all the questions, we need to do this, and we need to do this as soon as we can, and we need to do it in the economy that we have right now, because the economy is very different right now. And I mean, we're going to talk about some specifics about the economics behind all of this right before we get to the end of the show. But I've listened to a lot of people. I've listened to a lot of people's questions, and I think what we have happen is that people close their minds off to things because they hear we're going to spend more money. And what I'm hoping is that people will at least stop for a minute, access the information that we're going to make available at the end, through email at the end of the show, call the city manager's office, call the police station. I encourage everybody to call the police station if you haven't been there, because I haven't been there in years, and go and take a tour.
Absolutely.
Because that is really the only way to see really what the need is.
It eye-opening.
It is.
See the constraints.
It is eye-opening. It is eye-opening. I mean, to see the way that the space is shared by people in situations that shouldn't have to be shared. To see, I think honestly that the city of Norwich and the people who live here deserve a better facility. As citizens, the police that are protecting us definitely deserve a better environment within which to work. You've done an amazing job sort of keeping it going, but I think that puts an personally, I think that puts an unfair burden on you
Well,
to ask to do that, you know?
The other thing that bothers me more than that, I'm not concerned about that part of it. What bothers me is the inefficiencies that the existing building is causing us.
Exactly.
And those inefficiencies mean our officers could be spending more time on the street where we want them, out in the neighborhoods, doing the kind of work that we want them to do.
Right.
That's what really bothers me, is the inefficiency of the building. We don't have, we've got people spread out all over that building because we've had
Right.
them make do with every nook and cranny. So like groups, work groups are not together.
Right,
So
I
they're
saw that.
constantly moving
saw that.
to try to work together. And that's, extremely inefficient, and it causes the officers to spend more time in the station than would be needed if it was set up the proper way. There's just not enough room
Right.
to set it up the way we need to set it up. That's why we need a new facility.
Right. Well, and I invite everybody to take the tour just so you can see that if you need to send somebody down to the shooting range, I'm not going to give it away, but what you have to go through in order for people to use the shooting
Right.
range just, I think, blew my mind. I mean, what has to be moved
Yeah,
around
well,
in order to...
I'll give it away. What we have
You
to do is our bicycles, we have to store our bicycles,
I know.
obviously, and they're stored in the
Hanging up.
training range.
I know.
And they're hanging up there, so we have to remove the bicycles.
it's-
We have to
it's-
move a
it's
variety of
amazing.
other stored equipment, put it out in the hallway, do the training, and then put it all back again.
And that's
Again,
resources,
wasting
right,
time.
wasting
Yeah.
time, wasting resources.
The building is really functionally obsolete.
That's
the
exactly
bottom line.
what it is. I saw that. And it was funny because I took a walk through and I said to the chief when we were done, I said, without looking at the numbers, without looking at the dollar figures or how much more space you need, I bet you need about 70% more space. And I was pretty much right,
pretty
wasn't
close,
I?
yeah.
Just by
about
looking
hit it
at
on.
it, you can tell when you're in there just about how much more space they need to do it the right way. I just want to let people know that in the last 5 minutes of the show, what you're going to see on the bottom of the screen is going to be 2 email addresses, and one is to the city manager's office, and one is an address that I set up just for this particular project, and they'll be across the bottom of the screen, and you can use those email addresses to request. There's 2 documents. There's a proposed police headquarters fact sheet, and there is a frequently asked questions a couple of pages of questions that everyone's asked. A lot of them we've answered, in this show, but it'll definitely be something I encourage you to get and to read and to look at. So what we want to talk about, because we have about 5 minutes left in the show, we want to talk about, I mentioned the cost of doing this. And, why is this the right time to invest? Why is this the right time to do this, Alan?
Well, right now, we have some of the lowest interest rates available to municipalities. And in fact, the city of Norwich, doing some recent financing, had the lowest interest rate in the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
Which was well below 2%.
Right.
So you can't get any cheaper money than you can now. The other thing is because of the sluggish economy, because of the downturn in the economy, bids are coming in a lot less on public projects.
Okay.
So you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing it now, where you'll have quite a few contractors who will vie for the opportunity. And let me point out that number for the police station is a maximum. If authorized by the
Oh, okay.
voters on November 6th,
Okay.
that is the maximum we would spend. However, if the project comes in less, we will not spend anywhere near that. We will spend much less. We will only spend what it is to build the project.
Okay.
So it's an authorization. It is not a license to spend up to the
Oh,
maximum
okay.
amount.
So it's almost like having a big credit line.
Yes.
And you'll only access what's
What
needed
you need.
to get the facility. So it could come in. That's really important, I think, because I think people sort of have a number stuck in their head. I did anyways until I heard this explanation, and I'm hoping that this information we present tonight will give people a better sense for, like I said earlier, you don't want to spend any more than we have to. You don't want to spend any more. I don't want any more spent than we need to, but we need this.
And
And
the
this is
intent
how I
is to
look at it.
use this economic climate to cut our costs
Right.
and get the best deal we can and save hundreds of thousands of dollars for our taxpayers, both today and in the future.
During my career, I've been at 23 Union Street, the previous station.
Right.
And they did the same thing as they did in the 70s. it was an inadequate facility when we started, with no parking, and we kind of replicated that in a way when we did 70th Street, because they took a dollar amount and they made the building, they shrunk
That's
it
right.
down.
That's
And
right.
shrunk the whole facility down until it met that dollar figure.
Right.
I don't want my granddaughters having to pay for this in another 20 or 30 years again.
Right.
This needs to be a long-term solution, and what we're talking about
Is a
is a 20
long-term,
to 50
that's
year
right.
or more
That's right.
solution. And that's a cost-effective way to do it. You said it, we're all taxpayers here.
Right.
We don't want to spend a nickel more than we have to.
Right.
But we also want to do it in such a way we don't make the mistakes of the past.
right, that's
You know,
right.
that should be a lesson learned.
That's right. Well, and
Do
we
it
often.
once and do it right.
I was going to say, we often hear that we don't learn from the past. And in this situation, we are learning from the past. We're learning that it wasn't done and that the taxpayers really have the ability to do it right this time.
Absolutely.
It's really, the power is in the vote and the power is in the people to do that. Like I said, I can't encourage people enough, to call you and to call the city manager's office to get information.
And come for a tour.
Yeah, come for a tour.
I encourage anyone,
Right.
anyone that's watching
Certainly
to please
eye-opening.
give us a call,
Right.
and we're certainly happy to show you what are the inadequacies. And like you said, it didn't take very long
Nope.
during that tour to figure that out for
And
yourself.
I also learned very quickly before I run out of time is that one thing that's necessary for your municipality to do is to carry a certain amount of debt. That
Well,
it shows that
you're
reinvesting in ourselves, right? And that we have a very low amount of debt we're carrying per,
Yes, we're $730 at the last census, which is 2010 per
Okay.
capita.
okay,
The average across the state is 2,187. So we're well below that.
Right.
We're 138
all
from
right.
160.
So now is the time to invest. Now is the time to invest.
It is.
Well, I can't thank the two of you enough for all the work that you're doing to set this up and put the information out there so that the voters can make a decision. I'm here, there's two email addresses being flashed across the bottom of the screen, cmoffice@norwichct.org and citizenfornnps@yahoo.com are two email addresses. You can just request information about this project. And I want to thank you, Alan, for
My
your time
pleasure.
tonight,
Good-
for coming
good to
on.
be on.
I want to thank you, Chief, for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
And we'll just see how the voters decide in November. And that's the best we can do.
That's
Thank you very
absolutely.
much.
We put power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
That's right.
That's right.